And today I have a wonderful guest here for you all. It is Emperor Luna of the Empire of Primario. They are a micronation that's located in Texas. They are very outspoken on Twitter. If you don't follow them, you definitely should. They are talking about the problems that are going on in Texas. I personally am biased because they're our friends and they are some people who have been wonderful from us, buying our Vitae clay and showing us support. But today we are here specifically to talk about Emperor Luna and Primario and what they have been dealing with and seeing in the state of Texas. There's a lot going on from a very recent mass shooting there to discrimination against LGBTQ people, just a whole host of problems that Emperor Luna has been talking about and openly trying to advocate for solutions for a long time. So again, thank you so much for taking some time out, Emperor Luna, and I am excited to hear what you have to say.
The delight is all mine, honestly. I'm still kind of shaking because this is a huge deal for us. This is one of the, not the first, very definitely not the first, but one of the most significant micronational interactions that we've had in a long time on the community. And just to quickly go back to Vatan Clay, this is what we've had made so far. Now we were not able to find. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Bye, Isabella. I'm sorry, Emperor Luna. I don't mean to be rude to you. I was gonna ask questions.
Oh, that's all right. I thought you needed to be pulled away for something for a moment there, and I didn't want to just cut in.
No, it's fine. Again, thank you so much, and I apologize. Please continue.
Yeah, so this is what we were able to make with Vatan red clay. It's beautiful. Well, it's a first project, so it's not exactly the most perfect piece of pottery that I've ever made, but the clay itself is beautiful. It's got this delightful rust color. It's so nice to work with. And the fact that it came from outside, sourced from natural landscapes, it's just wonderful to me. And the only reason we were not able to really fire it is because of this tiny crack on the inside. And I don't want it to burst open in a kiln. So it's bone dry, but not ceramic.
Mhm. No, I definitely understand, and I'd like to point out to everybody as well that because that's our first shipment of Vitae clay, and because we've never been able to actually make anything with Vitae clay yet, that is the first Vitaean artifact that has been made. So I'm super honored that you all have made that, and in the future I would love to purchase some of that myself. We want to set up more things in Vitae, so obviously having those historical artifacts for us is a huge deal. And also
Mhm.
just hopefully a way to boost relations between us. But
Yes.
absolutely incredible. I appreciate it.
And
Um,
as
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
And as I mentioned before, it's a huge honor to be able to receive the first shipment of clay from Aeternia.
I'm glad to hear it. Somebody asked in the comments real quick, so you can plug some stuff. Does Primario have a website? And if so, what do you prefer people go to?
That is the reason why we are very active on Twitter. We have not made a website as of yet, but we have that in our short-term goals list. We are certainly working on making a website, but at the moment we do not have a website.
No, and we can go ahead and post that in the description. We'll thing as well. But yes, what I'm gonna try and do right now, if you wanna tell us a little bit about everything that's going on, I'm gonna try and escape the wind and get inside because people are telling me my audio is terrible. So my apologies, everyone. I'm trying to escape.
Alrighty. So if anyone does not know already, Texas is a very Republican leaning state. Excuse me. And as part of the fact that Texas has a Republican leaning majority, there are a lot of conservative elements within the state. The government is a huge majority Republican, from the Senate to the House to the position of the governor, lieutenant governor. Just about every facet of the state government is, for lack of a better term, dominated by Republican interests. And as a result of that, they don't really see much opposition in the state of Texas, against passing certain laws that the Republican Party deems appropriate. And among some of these laws have been laws that have been targeting. Sorry, I saw a comma pop up. I got distracted for a second there. And yeah, some of the laws that the Republican Party has passed have been in the name of religious freedom, in the name of patriotism, in the name of protecting the interests of Christians, of families, of children. And I use quotes in so many of these statements because the way these laws are written are almost intentionally made in such a way to harm people. And people don't really pay too much mind to the kind of people that are going through the things that they're going through in the state. Sorry, my echo is kind of distracting.
No, you're fine. Is my audio okay? I know I'm not inside.
Um, I'm trying to keep the volume high enough to where I can hear you fine, but I also don't want my echo to throw off my train of thought.
I understand. Would it be better? I might need to grab headphones. If you want to keep speaking, I'll mute myself, grab headphones, so that way it helps everybody
Okay.
out. You have
All
the
right.
mic
Thank
in
you.
your hand.
But yeah, we don't really pay much mind to some of the things going on in Texas because everyone outside of the state of Texas thinks, oh, they're all Republican, they're all conservative, they're all rednecks, they're all these awful people, these Trump supporters. And sadly, that is not the case. There are a lot of marginalized communities within the state of Texas. There's a substantial number of LGBTQ individuals. There's a substantial number of minorities, particularly Hispanics, that people don't really talk about because they think, oh, Texas is this white state. We are not. We are actually a very almost borderline. I don't want to say majority, but I want to say there's a significant plurality of Hispanics in the state. And something that we notice time and time again is that because Texas sort of lives in this bubble where everyone perceives it as conservatives, perceives it as universally Republican, we don't really pay much mind to the more liberal and or marginalized elements within the state. And some of these laws that have been passed within the past year, past 2 years even, are just downright barbaric. Like not 2 months ago, we have Bill 1515, which literally says the Ten Commandments must be posted in a place of conspicuousness within a classroom. And I just find that so, and people just love that. So many people in the state just think, oh, well, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with putting up airing out our Christian values within the classroom? The problem with that is the context in which that is being put forth, which is the fact that we have a lot of anti-LGBT and specifically anti-trans legislation being passed. For example, we've got HB 25 that says that in student events such as public schools, and I believe I think it only goes through public schools, but we'd have to do some more research on this. And it says that, oh, we cannot have we can only have people participating within uh, the certain leagues, for example, if they are trying to go for women's sports, they have to have been a woman assigned a woman at birth or assigned female at birth. If they're going for male sports, they have to be assigned male at birth. And and there's and it's just it's so ugly because people think that, oh, they're being outcompeted, like women are being outcompeted by these men that are pretending to be women, and it's ugly language to use for to describe trans women, and it's such ugly language to use to describe trans people in general. And then there's also the fact that we have SB 12 that says we cannot have drag shows aimed at that are inappropriate, aimed at children. But the problem is that literally no one was taking their children to burlesque shows. There's a difference between a man dressing as a woman, quite fabulously, I might add, and someone stripping down, doing some dances on poles, and just generally being not vulgar, but
Provocative.
thank you.
I
And sorry, you go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. My apologies. My audio isn't connecting. I'm trying to figure that out. But I would say that's absolutely disgusting. That there are so many people pushing for discrimination in that way. That there are so many people who are keeping blind to that. I certainly don't think it's a majority of Texas that feels that way. And I think it's surprising because one of our commenters is one of our previous citizens, Vincent, who has now created the state of Lincoln. And he and I were talking the other day about him having very right leaning values and feeling himself as though, the Republican Party is becoming more than just right leaning, but outwardly fascist, and that has been going on for some time. And so I think that's very scary for people to say, um, eh, however you view our political system, the political system in the United States, that there's a certain point where anything that you care about, anything that is important to you, can kind of start to be stripped away. That the people that we're seeing targeted, the people that we're seeing attacked, are being attacked in a way that is very carefully done so that it it's phrased in a way that doesn't make people think, oh, this could happen to you, when it's just open, flagrant disregard for all of the things that are meant to protect everybody in the United States, without, uh, while saying, don't worry, you're safe. We're just attacking these people. These people are different. These people are strange. Don't support them. It's horrible. It's gross. It's something I never thought I would see happening so outwardly in my life.
Yeah, precisely. It's the language of these bills is deliberate, but also not very specific. They know what they're trying to do when they try to make it unclear as to who this is aimed at. For example, they say, we're trying to protect the children. From who? From pedophiles? From sexual predators? Then say that and don't act like LGBT people are the same as that, because that is very damaging, very ugly, very hateful rhetoric, because that is not true. And oh, it seems the stream has paused for a moment there. Sorry, did the stream cut out there?
Yes, it did. My apologies.
Okay.
I hit a button on my phone and it just completely dropped everything.
All right.
So sorry about that.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's 100% my fault. The stream's just coming back on now. I was trying to fix my audio again, so as to save you some earache, but I'm not able to without like fully exiting the stream, unfortunately.
Let me see if I can just take one earphone out and see if I can just speak that way.
Sure. Again, my apologies.
No, that's perfectly okay. Um, so
But
where
yeah,
did it cut out, if you don't mind me asking?
the last thing that I heard was you saying that these laws are written deliberately. They're written to target people, but they're written in a way that isn't exactly that is very vague, so that you can keep pushing this boundary. You can keep trying to see where
Yes.
that goes.
These bills don't try to dispel any stereotypes about LGBT people or about any other community that might be harmed by any of this. They do this deliberately so that people can continue to think, that particularly hateful people can continue to think that every gay guy is a pedophile, every lesbian is a slut, every trans person is a woman trying or a man trying to sneak into the women's bathroom and crap like that. And it's so ugly. It's so ugly, it's so deliberate, and it's so targeted, yet vague enough for people to think, oh, they're just trying to protect our children.
I completely agree. And I think that is exactly the issue. That for people who would support the bills, or at very least who would say, I don't see the problem with this, they're not realizing the fact that it is specifically geared that way so that it can be used by people who are prejudiced as a weapon. It's that much more defense of their belief and ideology, which is far, far in the minority. But if you have somebody who's really hateful, really violent, not wanting certain people to exist, these people with very, very fascist ideologies saying, oh, well, my belief is so crazy, right? But it's backed up by law. These laws are
Yeah.
now saying that what I believe is true and right. So it's easier for them to convince people who may be on the edge of being further radicalized to get on board, and it also helps to quiet those people who would argue against them because now they have that law on their side.
Absolutely. It's just, and if you think any of those bills that I just listed earlier are bad, just think of the ones that some of these governing officials wanted to have. Our Attorney General Ken Paxton literally wanted to have a list of every single person who had their name or birth certificate amended, and that is just that just screams to me and just about everyone who criticizes Ken Paxton and the conservative government of Texas that that is a hit list you're trying to make there. You're trying to make a hit list of trans people in Texas.
Absolutely, and it's something that is becoming a concern here as well. I live in the state of Alabama, um, and nonetheless, living in one of the more liberal areas here, it is still incredibly, incredibly prejudice, and there is a lot of that same rhetoric that's spewed all the time here. Even now, we're seeing the same thing. These anti-drag bills, anti-trans bills coming out in Alabama, and it's horrible because we feel as a micronation, oh, we should be able to stand up for these people. We should be able to help and do what we can, and it's wild to see so many people um, being affected by this. People I've gone to college with, people that I love and care about, who are feeling scared and messaging each other and asking, "What are we going to do?" Is this a place that we want to live anymore? My family's lived here for decades. I wasn't thinking about moving, but now I'm definitely moving. Um, it it sucks. It sucks that these areas are saying, well, if you don't fit into the box that we've created, if you don't like the way that we view the world, then don't come to Texas. Don't come to Alabama. Don't be a
Oh,
citizen.
that rhetoric upsets me so much. It's genocidal rhetoric, plain and simple. And the reason why I say that is because no matter how bad it gets here in Texas, no matter how discriminatory the government becomes, no matter how much they want to drive people away, I lived here most of my life. I grew up here. My community's here. My roots are here. My family is here. The people that I work for are here. My life is here. And and I think I've said this before on Twitter as well. We will not be intimidated out of our home. And if you think that you're going to make it inhospitable for us, the only way you can drag my sorry self out of the state is in a box to the Gulf Coast.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most wild things about the politicians that I see all over, but especially in Texas. Texas is known for being the place of tough guys. Everything's bigger in Texas. Everything, Texans are the people who fought for their own independence and did all these incredibly courageous things. The gay people in Texas are Texans too. The Latino people in Texas are Texans too, and they are going to push back just as hard as you will for anything that you're trying to do to take their families from them, to take their homes from them. I think any Texas politician who is underestimating the people of Texas is absolutely sorry.
That's absolutely correct because uh, they made all these freaking firearms available to all these lunatics. They're available to me too. They're available to our communities as well. And there's a huge movement within the trans community to say pack, always be packing, always have a firearm on your side because at this point, the government's not going to protect you. The police are not going to protect you. Good God, Uvalde just showed that the police are not going to protect you. So just you have to be armed, and it's terrifying because we in Primario are still very opposed to the huge proliferation of firearms in the state. In fact, that's how the past two shootings have happened in in the state.
Absolutely. And I think we in Aeternia feel the same way. In being against violence, being a community as Eternians, as Primarians, also just in micronationalism, I think we all kind of want to see change and people being able to live more happily. And it's very wild to see the governments that we come from and the communities that we live in continuing to do things that are only harming themselves and only killing people and only causing problems. And the justification is, well, we couldn't possibly make it hard for somebody or inconvenient for somebody to do something that could end the lives of tens of people, potentially tens, 20 people. It's tragic. And I think as micronations, that's the thing that inspires me so much is the fact that even though all of that is happening, that people like you, the people in Primario, are speaking out against that and are saying if you need a voice, if you need somewhere that you can find people who care about you and who see the problems with this, you can come here. We're your friends. That's a beacon of light, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. Inclusivity and representation are a huge deal for so many people. It's just as devastating as it is to be excluded from anything, whether it be jobs, whether it be searching for a home, whether it be trying to get affirming healthcare for your for your gender. I don't want to say gender preference because there's very much a difference between being very comfortable with one's skin and wanting to, you know, decide between how you want to look and how you identify.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think talking about that and talking about those people who are affected so much, do you think that that's going to attract a larger wave of people into micronationalism? Is that something you hope for? Is there something that I guess in an ideal world you would like to see
I would like to have people come to Primario to feel so that they can feel safe and so that they can feel included. But I always feel wary about seeking out people who are down on their luck and down on their feeling marginalized within their communities and within their circle of peers because it feels more like recruitment rather than you are welcome to come here. Please, you will be safe here. You'll be happier here.
happen? No, I completely agree. I think that's something that I've grappled with Eternia as well, and I think our our hope is that over time, as we get more resources, as we get more opportunity for people, that that can be provided as tools. You know, if you want to come here and just see what things are, if you want to find friends here and people who will support you, that is always guaranteed. You don't have to be Eternian. You don't have to support us in any way. We're here for you. But if those people do want to do more, and you know, as I guess selfish as it is, we will be recruiting people. I hope that those people feel and that we can truly provide for them tools for them to be able to make change. The people that we recruit hopefully are people who are saying, I see a value in this that I can take and bring to people who need it. And so I think even though it is absolutely recruitment, and even though it is absolutely for the motive of trying to grow the organization and the government, I would hope that it can be even still a tool for some good. Um, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I didn't. It's hard for me to tell sometimes when there's a pause and when there's a.
It's me. It's the way I speak. Sometimes I'll be saying something and I'll go on for a second, and then I'll leave a pause. I'll think of something, and then right as soon
Mhm.
as I want to jump in with the question, I've already interrupted somebody.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. We have our own speechisms that happen on our end as well. A lot of ums, a lot of uhs that we're still trying to work on.
Me too.
But I never want to disparage anyone for wanting to get as many citizens as possible because that is absolutely a valid goal. That is a completely valid goal in any micronation, and I respect the micronations that have a large citizenry. But I also find it important to have a dedicated citizen population rather than strict numbers, because there's having 10,000 people who most of which don't really do anything. They just say, "Oh, I'm a citizen of this country," and then a few years later, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm still a citizen of this country. What am I doing?"
Absolutely. When we first started out, the way that we set it up was everybody who subscribes to our YouTube channel is considered a citizen. And then very quickly we realized, oh, we don't actually have anybody to help do things. That's not really effective. So we've definitely tightened the reins a lot there. But I completely agree with you. Quality over quantity.
Hmm.
And I think from the time that I've been able to see people come through Aeternia, you know, we've been going on for about 6 years now. So having some people who have spent their entire stint here, it's incredible to see that they have made a big difference in what Eternia is. You know, they've changed us culturally. They've changed our resources and our ability to do things. They've taught us things. And so, in all of that, I feel like absolutely one really good citizen is better than a million who are just, sideline supporters, I guess.
Hmm. And
And
we've
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 taken
taken
such a
such a
strong
strong
quantity over
quantity over
quality
quality
stance with
stance
regards
with
to our
regards to our
citizen
citizen
population that
population
we're
that we're
this
this
actually today is
actually today is
Primario's fifth
Primario's fifth
anniversary. We're
anniversary.
about to
We're
hit
about
five
to hit
years
five
in
years in
existence
existence
today,
today,
actually.
actually.
I am so honored. Thank you for being here on Primario's fifth anniversary. Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
It was
I didn't think
I didn't
about it
think about
until
it until
literally this
literally
morning. I was
this
like,
morning.
wait
I
a
was like,
minute,
wait a minute,
this is the
this
fifth
is the fifth
anniversary of our
anniversary
nation's
of our nation's
existence, isn't it?
existence, isn't it?
So
So
yeah, that was a
yeah, that
huge
was a huge
coincidence right there.
coincidence right
The
there.
reason we
The
picked
reason
Monday
we
in the
picked
first
Monday in the
place was
first place
because
was because
we were going to
we were
try to
going
have
to
a
try to
stream,
have
I
a
believe,
stream, I
on
believe, on
Friday, right?
Friday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was on
Yes, it was on
Friday, and then we
Friday, and then
had,
we
of
had,
course,
of
as soon
course,
as
as soon
we
as we
even think about
even think
saying
about
yes,
saying
the
yes,
storm
the
gets
storm
really,
gets
really
really,
bad,
really
and our
bad, and
internet
our
gets really,
internet gets
really
really, really
janky, and
janky, and
we decided,
we decided,
oh, well,
oh
I don't want to
well, I
keep
don't want to keep
Emperor AP
Emperor
waiting.
AP
I don't want to
waiting. I
keep
don't want to keep
Eternia waiting.
Eternia
I don't
waiting.
want
I don't
to
want to
have a stream
have a
that gets
stream
cut
that
off
gets
too
cut off
quickly,
too
and I'd
quickly,
rather
and I'd
just wait
rather just wait
until our
until
next
our
available
next
day.
available
And
day,
our next
and our
available
next
day just
available
so
day just
happens
so
to
happens
be
to be
Your
our
anniversary.
our
major national
major
holiday,
national
our
holiday, our
Declaration of
Declaration of
Independence,
Independence.
when I
When I
shouted from a
shouted from a
rooftop and said, "We
rooftop
are
and said, "We are
independent."
independent."
Did you really? Did you really go out and shout from a rooftop that you're independent?
Okay, it was not a
Okay, it was
rooftop,
not
it
a
was an
rooftop, it
apartment
was an apartment
balcony.
balcony.
It still counts. That's
Okay.
100% valid. I love that. That's amazing. That's more than I did. I like wrote a piece of paper. I think most people like that. That is actually inspiring. I really love that. Do you feel like you would make it a tradition? Like if I was a Primarian, I would want to do that every year. I'd be like, let's go and find a bigger building and yell off of this building.
Oh, each year
Oh,
it
each
has
year
to be
it
a
has to be a
progressively taller
progressively taller
building.
building.
Eventually, you're at the top of the Burj Khalifa with like 1,000 people yelling, hanging out windows. Oh goodness.
Oh, well,
Oh well,
I've thought
I've
about
thought
having
about
that be
having that
a
be
national
a national
tradition, but
tradition,
we
but
right
we
now,
right
because we
now
have
because we
about
have
five
about five
citizens and pretty
citizens
much
and
all
pretty
of them
much
are
all of them are
introverts,
introverts,
we've had a bit of
had a bit of
difficulty trying to
difficulty
have
trying to
that
have
become
that
established
become
as a
established as a
tradition, and I do
tradition,
not
and I
want
do
to
not want to
make anyone
make
feel like
anyone
they
feel
have
like they
to
have to
step out of their
step out of their
comfort zone
comfort
and
zone and
scream to the
scream to
heavens
the
pretty
heavens pretty
much.
much.
Absolutely. That's completely understandable. Super cool though. Now that makes me feel like a Primarian party is an especially exciting party. I would love to be in attendance for
Oh
whenever
Oh
goodness, our
goodness,
ever.
our
from our
our
not to make a
not to
pun
make
about
a
our
pun about
nation's
our
name,
nation's name,
our
our
primarily
primarily
Hispanic
Hispanic
population,
population,
that's kind of a
that's kind of a
guaranteed at this
guaranteed at
rate.
this rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very, very rarely in Texas. There was a point where I was doing some travel to Texas for my work, but I'm no longer employed doing the same thing. If at some point I can find my way down to Texas, I would love to visit Primario. If that's an option for you all, I would
That
love
would be
to see
That
it.
would be
delightful, to be
delightful, to be
honest.
honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool deal. So 5 years in existence today. How does that
Yes.
Yes.
how does that feel? Because I think every year that I go through thinking about, wow, I'm a year older and I'm running a nation and I'm trying to talk to all these other people. It it never feels like it fully sinks in. I don't know how you feel about it, but tell me different.
It never fully
Never
sinks
fully
in
sinks
until
in
after
until
the fact,
after the fact,
honestly.
honestly.
It's
It's
strange
strange
because
because we
I mean, I
I
just
mean, I
mentioned
just
how I
mentioned
almost
how I
forgot
almost
that it was
forgot that
even
it was
the
even
day
the
of
day of
our
our
nation's
nation's
independence, and we
independence, and
just
we just
it's something
it's
that never
something that
quite
never
sinks in
quite
until
sinks in
after the
until
fact.
after the fact.
Sometimes the
Sometimes
immediate
the
day
immediate
after,
day after,
sometimes
sometimes
a week
a week
after,
after,
I sit
I
there and
sit there and I
on my
sit
little
on my little
sectional and I'm
sectional and I'm
realizing, oh
realizing,
my God,
oh
we're
my
this
God,
many
we're
years
this
old
many years
today,
old
or
today,
we're this many
or this
years
many years
plus this many
plus this
days
many
old.
days old.
And it's just fascinating to think that there's so much longevity that I was not anticipating for this nation to have when I first started it all those years ago.
Absolutely. So what's been the engine of Primario? You know, I feel like for myself and for Aeternia, the thing that I'm always shouting is, oh, well, you know, my family had it difficult, and I really want to, you know, make things better for my family in the future and for other people's families. So that's the thing that's kind of always in the back of my mind, the reason I keep going. Is there anything in particular that you feel like as each year goes by, this is why we're here. This is why this is important.
Well, ominously enough, it feels like the longer our micronation has existed, the more insane our state's government has become with some of these policies. They've ever since ever since our third anniversary, it seems like they've more or less completely banned abortions in Texas. They're trying to criminalize drag shows because they think they're too sexual for children, even though not all of them are meant for children, and some of them that are meant for children are not inherently sexual. They're trying to exclude people from sporting events, from existing, and now you have Ken Paxton who wants to ban them from changing their name and go back into the closet, so to speak. You have the fact that all these people are saying that it's about the children and the age of consent in Texas is still 17. And it's just every time I think I need to quit, I need to live a quiet domestic existence and just to hide away and just fade into obscurity and let myself just live a peaceful and unassuming life. Every time I think about that, I feel like one of these types of laws passes. And then I think, no, we need to be out there. We need to be out there for our communities. We need to be out there for our people. We need to be out there for everyone who is feeling disaffected by the state's government.
I'm really glad to hear that because I think that's something that spins around in my head often. You know, talking to different people and seeing the problems that come up with all this. I think on a national debate stage or even in state by state situations where these laws are being passed, one of the biggest questions and stuff that comes up with is oh well anything else would cost so much money, it would be so inefficient that there's no way to help all these people without millions and millions of dollars and all this stuff, but like you can make a big impact with not a ton of resources, like you're saying yourself. At the very least, just speaking out and letting people know that this is wrong and that there is a large community of people who don't stand for this is important. Going beyond that, when we've started to do just a very little bit, we have an RV now that we're working on, and it's broken down, it doesn't work, we're trying to get it to work. At that point, abortion law being the way that it is in Alabama and like you're saying yourself in Texas, it wouldn't be too much once we had that running to pick people up if they needed to and drive them into a different state. We're bordering
Yes.
several different states that we could easily get passage to more northward, and that for a couple $100 in gas, food, stuff like that, you could
Hmm.
change someone's life entirely. And I think for stuff like that, micronations become something that are more than just spectacle, more than just political activism. It's something that becomes like a public good, a public service, and I think that's important when other people don't want to pick up the reins.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And it's funny you mentioned that the RV. I still own a minivan.
Hey,
I bought that from my parents like a few years ago. It's kind of old. It's run down. It's really bad in terms of fuel economy. And as a commuter, that's really bad because gas is expensive right now. Um, But it also
But
gave
it also
me
gave
thoughts
me
about
thoughts
how,
about
well,
how,
I
well,
can
I
seat
can
7
seat
people on
seven
that
people
thing.
on that thing.
So
Mm.
if
So if
anyone that I
anyone that
know
I
or if a
know
bunch
or
of
if a bunch of
people
people
have a friend of
have
a
a
friend
friend
of
of
a
a friend of a
friend that
friend
really
that
need to get
really
an
need to get an
abortion done,
abortion done,
Texas still has
Texas
not
still has not
criminalized out-of-state
criminalized out-of-state
abortions.
abortions.
Actually, I don't think they
Actually, I
have the
don't
right
think
to
they
do
have the
that
right to do
anyway.
that anyway.
So
So
there's
there's
the problem with
the problem
Texas as
with
well is
Texas
that
as
it's
well is
so
that it's so
massive.
massive.
It's so
It's so
massive, and it's
massive, and it's
also
also
surrounded by
surrounded by
equally
equally
conservative
conservative
states.
states.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, you
I mean,
have
yes,
the
you have the
indigenous nations
indigenous
to
nations
our
to
north in
our north in
Oklahoma, but
Oklahoma,
the
but the
state of
state of
Oklahoma
Oklahoma
itself is
itself
just as
is just as
strict. The
strict.
state of
The state of
Arkansas is just as
Arkansas is just
strict.
as
The
strict.
state of
The state of
Louisiana is
Louisiana
almost
is
as strict
almost as
unless you go to
strict
New
unless you go to New
Orleans,
Orleans,
which is a
which is a
Democratic
Democratic
stronghold over
stronghold
there.
over there.
And then
And then
the only
the
exception
only
is New
exception is New
Mexico,
Mexico.
but that's a
That's
10-hour
a 10-hour
drive away
drive
from where
away
we
from where
are,
we are,
8 of which
eight of which
is in the
is
desert
in the
pretty
desert
much.
pretty much.
Right, absolutely. And especially, dealing with people in that situation who are pregnant and, may have medical complications and things like that, that would be an absolutely large risk. I would say I think it's the same thing here in the sense that the states that border us, we're in North Alabama, so we have Tennessee maybe an hour away.
Mhm.
We have Mississippi an hour and a half to 2 hours. Georgia an hour, hour 10 minutes, something like that. But if we can, cut it right, you can get up to places, South Carolina, starting to get up on the East Coast,
Mhm.
within 3 4 hours, something like that. So it would still be a long journey, but you'd be. I guess the better thing about our situation is you'd be in a civilization. You'd be local to some stuff if you had to get to the hospital real quick or something.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
But absolutely, I think stuff like that. We've thought about potentially trying to do food drives before, but there's weird stuff in Alabama with that too. For some reason, I guess it's based on the pick yourself up by your bootstraps type of thing. But Alabama has this weird situation where we live near Huntsville, which is one of the major kind of metropolitan areas here. There, Mobile, Birmingham are the three major ones. Huntsville has a lot of homeless people, and they are trying to make way for a lot of people in like engineering and tech fields to come in. So they're building all these big expensive apartment complexes and kicking everyone who can't afford the rent there out of the city. And so they're trying to push all these homeless people out. And it's really rough because there have been several like churches and community organizations that will try to go and just feed homeless people on the street and will get fined and will get in trouble for feeding the homeless people because they don't want the homeless people there and they feel like it attracts the homeless people. So it's really rough. I in trying to think about things to do to help the community, I have to figure out ways to I guess work within these gross laws that are restricting their like basic needs. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I
I
remember
remember
you posted
you
this on
posted this
Twitter
on
how
Twitter
about how
about how
people are
people
actually
are
being
actually being
restricted from
restricted
helping the
from
homeless
helping the
directly.
homeless directly.
Actually, in the city of
Actually, in the city
Arlington,
of
which is where
Arlington,
I'm
which is
based
where
on
I'm
right,
based on, right,
based out of right
based out of
now,
right now,
there I
there
saw a
I saw
sign
a
that said
sign that
that
said
even
that
talked
even
about how,
talked
oh,
about how,
don't give
oh,
to the
don't give to the
panhandlers, give to
panhandlers, give
this,
to
give to that,
this, give to that,
and it's just
and it's
it's
just
so
it's so
difficult
difficult
because
because
I look at
I
stuff
look
like
at
that
stuff
and I
like that
think,
and I think,
are you really
are you
trying to
really
help
trying to
these
help
people,
these
or are you
people,
just
or are you
trying
just
to
trying to
get them out
get
of
them out
sight
of
so
sight
that your
so
city
that your
looks
city
better?
looks better?
100%. And it's tough because there are plenty of organizations that do a lot of good, but it for me is tough to figure out where to put funds and resources toward because even if you give to an organization, if it's like a national organization, especially, there's going to be lots of things that are just in their upkeep. There's going to be lots of things that are based on paying the people who are going out and doing this work. So, how much of your dollar actually gets down to the person who needs it? It feels so much simpler if I can just get a whole bunch of canned food together, get a whole bunch of stuff, and just bring it to people and drop it off and say, whoever needs this, just come and take it till we don't have anymore.
Yeah, it's there's
It's
just so
there's
much
just so much
bureaucracy in
bureaucracy in
between
between
your
your
donation and
donation
the
and
homeless
the homeless
community
community
that just
that
eats
just
up all
eats
of
up
that
all of
money,
that
and
money, and
and it's almost
it's almost
identical to civil
identical to civil
forfeiture
forfeiture
in that
in that
regard. Like,
regard. Like
I saw a
I
post
saw a
on
post
Facebook
on
one
Facebook
time
one
where
time where
this police
this
department,
police
I do not
department, I do
remember
not
where, was
remember
like,
where, was like,
we were
we
able
were
to
able to
seize
seize
$1,700
$1,700
and
and
took it out of the
took it out of the
streets.
streets.
Don't give to
Don't
the
give
to
to
panhandlers, give to
panhandlers,
these
give to these
centers. And they
centers,
got
and they got
absolutely
absolutely
slammed by
slammed
people
by
saying,
people
you
saying,
stole
"You
that
stole
man's
that
hard-earned
man's
money,"
hard-earned money,"
because those
because
people
those
gave him
people
that
gave him
money
that
with the
money with the
understanding that he was
understanding
going
that
to
he was
get
going to
himself a
get
better
himself a
life
better
for like
life for
at
like
least a
at
month,
least a month,
or maybe
or
like some
maybe like
food,
some food,
maybe a bit
maybe
of
a bit of
healthcare if he can
healthcare if he
help
can
it,
help it,
or she
or
can help it.
she
I do
can
not
help it. I do
remember.
not remember.
And
And
crap like
crap
that
like
is
that
why
is why
we in
we in
Primar also
Primaria
cannot
also
stand the
cannot stand the
police.
police.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can completely support the sentiment. And like you're saying, that's absolutely why I had never heard about that story of the police bragging about, yeah, we took all this money from a homeless person. That's horrible.
I
I,
think they
I
were
think
trying
they
to
were
phrase
trying
it
to
as
phrase it
a
as a
oh,
oh,
don't get your
don't get
money,
your money,
give your
don't
money
give
to
your money
people
to
who
people who
might use it
might
for
use it for
drugs. Give it
drugs.
to
Give it
these
to these
shelters, give it to
shelters,
this.
give it to
But
this. But
nonetheless, like,
nonetheless,
they
like
gave it
they
to
gave
that
it to that
guy, and they,
guy, and
with the
they with the
understanding that
understanding
like
that like
they were
they
going
were
to better
going to
themselves
better
with it.
themselves with it.
Right. Also, it's not like they said, hey, we confiscated $1,700 worth of heroin from the
Yeah.
guy. They're
Yeah.
like, no, it was
Hmm.
just cash that he had, or he
Hmm.
had. That's horrible. Um, wow. I I feel like that's a similar issue where the the more that you're trying to do, obviously the harder that it can be if people don't want you to help in that way. But then it's the nerve of being able to hear from the other side. Oh well, we don't need to put in place, government funded programs. We don't need low income housing. We don't need all of these things because charities will take care of that. But we don't want the charities here either because they're annoying us. I don't understand.
Or oh, we're not
Oh, we're
going
not
to
going
put any
to put any
regulations on the
regulations on the
charities
charities
either, so
either,
that
so that
McDonald's, or
McDonald's, or
not to name
not
any
to name any
specific
specific
corporations, I'm
corporations,
sorry,
I'm sorry,
McDonald's, do not hurt
McDonald's, do
me.
not hurt me.
Um,
Um,
so that the
so that the
corporation can say,
corporation can
"Oh,
say,
we're
"Oh, we're
donating to this
donating to this
cause, but
cause, but
actually we
actually
pocket
we pocket
99% of the
99% of
funds,
the
give
funds, give
1% of it to
1%
the
of it
people
to the
actually
people actually
affected,
affected,
and
and
then we
then
still get
we
to
still
write the
get to
whole
write
thing
the
off
whole
as a
thing off
tax
as a
write-off,"
tax
and it's
write-off,
just
and it's just
ugly to me.
ugly to me.
No, I completely agree. I think that's one of the things that's super exciting, at least about being in the micronational community to me, because their progress here is always very, very slow. You always see so many people who are coming in and out of the community, people who really want to do good and make a difference, but it's hard for them. And the, the the light that I always see in that, the hope that I always have is that all of these people seem to be trying to go toward, well, we have a positive message we're trying to send. We all want to raise awareness about something. There's people who, at very least, it encourages to speak out. And then the ones who are going further than that are saying, hey, we want to, get together this money to do a thing. We want to, try to get a piece of land or whatever and give people housing. There's it seems like these little individual movements that are micronations are going from the smallest seedling, discussions and the things that cause them to be founded in the first place, these frustrations, and that's bubbling up and forming local communities and forming things that are actual vectors for larger scale change. And I just hope that the larger activist communities, the larger groups that are trying to push for some of these same causes that we all feel are so important, are able to accept us, are able to work with micronations, and that we're able to get through to that and make some positive change. I think it would do a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It's
It's
always
always
Sorry, I didn't know what that sound was. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I muted myself because they're now doing like I guess tree cutting. This is horrible. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. No, you're fine because I also have this bird feeder outside, and they've just been like, I don't know if y'all have been hearing them squeaking and squawking all day.
I was gonna say not at all. I feel so embarrassed because between the audio on my end with not having headphones to this stuff going on, yours has been crystal clear. I think mine is the thing people are trying to figure out what to do with. But I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I'm glad that my birds have not been any distraction to anyone, but yeah, collaborative effort goes a long way. Cooperation, collaboration, community, all the three C's are, so to speak, are just people go a lot further working together than I have my little fiefdom, you have yours, you stay on your side of the fence, and I stay on mine, and this and that. It's me for only me, and you for only you, and it's everyone for themselves. And that doesn't go very far at all. And I feel like so many Americans and so many Texans, and especially Texans, have this mentality of, I can do this myself. They can do that themselves. They can take care of themselves. And it's just, and it's sad. It's disappointing because people are so much better when they work together. People are a lot more not expedient, are a lot more compassionate and a lot more diligent. That's the word I was looking for. A lot more diligent about what they need to do when they work together, because everything, just about everything good in this world has come about because of collaborative effort. I mean, one can argue. Oh, sorry, I had one of those pauses you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, one can argue a nation is little more than a collaborative effort of people living within these drawn lines on a map, if you really think about it that way.
No, I completely agree, and I think that's something that's important for a lot of our micronational viewers to remember is that whether you're the leader of a micronation, whether you are just working inside a micronation, whether you're looking at us and have no idea what we're doing, I think it's important to to remember that all of these projects that you're a part of, all of these things that you're trying to do, um, they're all, like you said, collaborative efforts. They're things that even if you see another micronation or you see another organization that you don't agree with or you don't know why they're doing something, definitely talk to those people. Definitely try to see if there's some way that you can come to more of an understanding, or if you can hash things out. But at the end of the day, as long as those people are not horrible, bigots and incredibly hateful, as long as those people are
Yeah.
not trying to tear others down, I think it's important for us to see that we all have a goal that we're trying to reach for. And if there's any way that we can collaborate and work together, that's a lot better than trying to tear each other down, because there's so little opportunity for growth as it is that it seems like the quickest and, like you said, the way to get the most determination from the most people is absolutely to have friends by your side.
Yeah, it's all well, it's not all about it, but it's all a lot of the biggest achievements have been through hard I was gonna say hard work and dedication. Goodness, my corporate lingo is coming out. I um through collaborative effort. That's really where most of the most successful projects that have ever come about. The restoration of the ozone layer came about because corporations, scientists, governments all banded together and said, "This is not going to happen. We cannot let this happen. We are actively going to kill our planet." And it's actually beautiful in a way. I think it's one of the few times that corporations have actually been like, "Oh yeah, we should ban- hop in on this bandwagon and get this dealt with."
I completely agree. And it's nice to see something in our lifetimes that has gone from just a political talking point to something, not just, but it's never been just a political. Let me rephrase that. Something that has been seen in some people's eyes as just a political talking point to something that really hits home for everybody as this is about survival. This is something necessary. It's something we can't avoid. It's something we can't put off. We have to deal with this, and we have to deal with it now. And I think if more human rights issues, if more, um, you know, large scale societal issues were dealt with that way, we would be in a much happier situation. I think a lot of the reason that people are creating micronations and are so dissatisfied with the places that they live is because they feel like, hey, my government sees all of these problems, they're right in our faces, they affect everybody every day, and yet for some reason everybody pretends like there's not a direct way to solve it. And so I'm glad that that's in some areas starting to see a little bit of change.
Um, well,
Well,
you mentioned
you
problems
mentioned
taking
problems
forever
taking forever
to
to
get solved.
get
Oh,
solved.
hold
Oh,
on. I'm
hold on.
sorry.
I'm
I think
sorry.
you've
I
just
think
gotten
you've
a
just
couple
gotten a couple
comments that are
comments that are
saying that they're
saying
having
that
trouble
they're having
hearing
trouble
you.
hearing you.
Absolutely, I am so sorry. Is it coming through all right on your end? I'll just start like screaming, kind of, unless it destroys your ears. My apologies.
No,
No,
I hear you
I hear you
fine. It's
fine.
just
It's just I don't
I
I
either
either
something is going
something is going
on
on
from
from
here
here
to the
to the
stream
stream
or something
or
because I
something
hear
because
you,
I hear
but
you, but
a couple
a
comments are
couple
saying that
comments
they
are
can't
saying
hear
that they
you.
can't hear you.
No, I completely agree. If you can, everybody, try to turn up your volume or put in headphones. Let me know if that works. If not, if I still sound horrible, just keep letting me know because I'll do something. I'll figure out how to make it a little bit better for you guys.
Um,
Um,
so
so
sorry, that
that
is I
sorry
didn't want
that is
to
I didn't want to
completely break the
completely break the
train of thought right
train of
there,
thought
but
right there.
that
But that
aside,
aside,
since you mentioned
since you mentioned
problems taking a
problems
long time
taking
to
a long
solve,
time to
something that
solve,
I was
something that
taught
I
at a
was
very
taught at a
early
very early
age
age
is that
is that
if a
if a
problem has
problem
a
has
very
a
obvious
very
solution and a very simple solution and it has not been solved, someone is standing to lose money from it being solved. Is what I have gathered. And it's
Yeah,
just
that's
it's sad.
it's
It's
sad.
sad
It's
because we
sad
have these
because we have
super
these
PACs
super PACs
and these
and these
corporations that are
corporations
just
that are just
influencing every
influencing
level of
every level of
government.
government.
absolutely. I completely agree, and it's very strange because I don't consider myself super radical to any extent, but I think it's very surprising because especially living in Alabama, and I'm sure you know, living in a southern state, it's strange to talk to people and to have topics come up like police shootings and things like that, and corporations destroying small local businesses and things like that, and people asking like, well, why is this happening? Why aren't people able to stop it? I don't understand why this didn't do a thing, and having to explain, oh well, there's actually purposeful intent behind it. People are keeping it that way because it's helpful for what they're doing, and it's strange to see that feel like betrayal, I guess, for other people. I think a lot of the people that I've met, especially going through college, especially creating Aeternia and starting to do more actively in politics, um, people feel as though their governments really represent them and are really there for them. And when they start to see that that's not always the case, they, I think, feel surprised by that and feel taken aback. I feel like there have that I know of, except maybe when I was very, very little, there hasn't been a time where I felt super connected to the government or to political institutions around me. And I think it's surprising to see other people's surprise in that, I guess.
Yeah, it's why I mean, heck, I've had people on Twitter and I've had people on various social media platforms accuse me of like being in bed with Biden or being in bed with the Democrats in general. Not in a literal sense, not in a literal sense, but being in bed with the Democrats, and it's so weird to me because I do not agree with some of the things the Democrats do because they feel too moderate in some respects. They're too moderate in some areas that absolutely need radical, quick change on, and just they're very much paid for, just like the Republicans. It's just that I prefer voting for the Democrats because typically they do not actively try to kill people, so to speak, that are directly impacted by specific bills and laws that are being proposed by the state legislatures, by the federal legislatures. It's all that. And it makes it's even more funny when people accuse me of being a communist. And I'm like, I am a monarchist. What are you going on about? That is everything Marx stood against.
Absolutely. Well, and it's it's wild to see people jump through those hoops to try and make their logic work. Like you said, people accusing you of being in bed with the Democratic Party and stuff like that. It would be strange to find out, oh, there were leaked CIA documents that the Biden administration was secretly working with these micronations to really get back at his political opponents through some very convoluted series of events. That it doesn't make sense, but it's also wild to see that that's the method of attack, is to say that,
Mhm.
well, if you don't justify my worldview, if what you're saying doesn't fit within the way that I see things, there has to be some very long, complicated conspiracy that does justify what I believe. It can't just be that I'm crazy. It can't just be that I'm ignorant or wrong about the thing that I'm doing. It's a very, very weird decision.
Yeah, it's just so it's insane to me that people will just immediately jump on the conspiracy bandwagon rather than think about, well, this person may genuinely just be disagreeing with me. No, there's some cabal of global elites who are all a secret pedophile ring of lizard people worshiping Satan and trying to bring about the apocalypse. And it's scary whenever I hear anyone get to the point where I've lost any and all reason with them and they are just completely convinced in their ways. I have nothing else to say but to just walk away. It's just anymore I worry they're going to shoot me in the face.
Oh, absolutely. And that's probably not, as sad as it is to say, that's probably not that far off of a thing to think about, because
Mhm.
there have been plenty of people who, when you look at mass shootings in the U.S., especially, uh, the manifestos that they find are just lists and lists of stereotypes and conspiracy theories that have been have been perpetuated by people in power, by people who have media organizations and things that are specifically trying to rile up that fan base. People like Fox News, just constantly airing, oh, these are all the different conspiracy theories that showed up on Truth Social or whatever
Oh
it
my
is.
god.
Yeah, yeah. It's very weird.
Fox I the last thing I ever saw of Fox was patriotism versus wokeism pop up on the screen. I'm like, no, I'm done. I don't even need to give them a minute. I saw that on the screen and I was immediately like, no, no, no. Which, by the way, if somebody uses the word woke in a disparaging way, anyone who's not aware of this already, if somebody uses the word woke in a disparaging way, you have to understand that they want to use a racial slur or a slur of any kind, and they're just putting woke in place of it because they're not allowed to say a racial slur without immediately getting dunked on, so to speak.
Absolutely. And that's that's a very wild thing to see in our modern society. You know what I mean? People who will do things even like on Twitter where people will go and have horrible like racist tirades and will say incredibly awful things to people over the internet or even to them in person. And then you see a news article come out about oh, that person got fired from their job, and they're surprised about it. They're like, I don't understand how this happened. It's very silly.
It must be because the corporations are woke. No, it must be because corporations are capitalists and are trying to protect their corporate interests. For example, Disney is not well. I don't know if this will get copyright strike if I just mention them, but they are not woke per se. They're a international multimedia corporation conglomerate at this point that owns pretty much all of your entertainment at this rate that are trying to protect their interests. They could not care less about the LGBT community. And the reason I know this is because anytime somebody has tried to come out with LGBT friendly media, they strike that crap down or they try to edit it out in other countries because they do not want to lose their immediate easy $1 billion from China or all these other countries where LGBT people are marginalized by their governments, and not just at the state level, but at their like national level.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that's very surprising about this turn of events and this situation is because in cases like in Florida where the governor is trying to fight with Disney and trying to cause all these problems because they claim it's this woke corporation. Um, it's wild because if that company is looking at a you know their portfolio, looking at their potential for loss and gain, and they're saying, well, it's actually cheaper for us to go against the local government in this case than it is to discriminate in the way that we do in other countries. Um, that that sets a pretty low bar for what their own beliefs are, and also it sets a really scary precedent that if it just costs them too much, then they would stop. They would very easily just go, oh well, now things have
Mhm.
changed to the point where we just can't do
Corporations
it.
are only about as woke as their governments will make them, pretty much. I mean, every corporation was completely on board with segregation, was completely on board with Jim Crow laws, was completely on board with sodomy laws, which pretty much treated every single LGBT relationship as a crime. And they did so gleefully until it came time for the Civil Rights Act to say, no, that's not okay anymore. And then they're like, oh, we were always in support of these people. We love the LGBT. We love the black community. Well, what's that? Black lives are good, right? That's what they said. That's what the kids are saying nowadays. Okay.
Absolutely. And it's it's good to see that in the world of all that trash and all that I guess insincerity. Um, I find it warming to see you all on social media to be able to get on Twitter and see all these weird debates and all these different things that are going on and to see you standing up for what you believe in and to see Primario doing its best to really make a difference for people. So again, I'm just really honored that I've gotten to have you here today, especially on your anniversary. But also I think I just as we continue on with our friendship, I want to learn more. I want to learn more about what we can do for the people of Texas and for you all, and I also want to be able to learn what it is that um, is is most important for you all. What it is
Of
that are
course.
those things that are driving that, so that we can be more aware of who we are and the stances that we take.
Mhm. And to be honest, I think it is up to me a bit as well, because as has been made abundantly clear, there are other Texas micronations. There's Dracul, there's Sycoldia, there's what is it, the Empire of Ant, all the way in Austin, and I have sent a email out to Dracul, but I'm at the awkward phase where did it get to them? Did it, or do I need to send another one? So I have a feeling that it didn't reach them, but I will be absolutely sure to send another one. Actually, I might do that later today.
Absolutely. I would say, from what I've seen, Dracul's a very friendly group of people. I have talked to and know Christina personally from Psycholia. She's very cool. I think you should be able to find some friends in Texas pretty quickly. Um, I think in doing that, I would just always encourage you that it's important to stand up for what you believe in and for who you are, because it, I know in Aeternia's history, not even dealing with any great persecution or discrimination, but just in matters of policy, it's very easy to. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Alrighty.
Sorry about that. There were children playing and crying, so I figured I would try
No,
to
that's
run somewhere
okay.
else.
That's okay.
But yes, in talking about that, I think that's one of the larger things that I've had to realize over the years is that it's important to just make sure that you can stand up for what you believe in, and keep to the the way that your nation runs. It's very easy to say, oh, well, to work with this other nation, we'll kind of make some concessions on what we do and who we are. But I don't think that's ever something that works out well in the end. Generally, nations who are good fits to work together will work together as who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're you're very seldom going to get, very rarely are you going to get, not, for lack of a better term, mortal enemies to work together, so to speak. I don't want to say that, for example, anyone right of where I am on the political spectrum is my enemy. It's more so, if your views are diametrically opposed, do not expect to work together for very long, outside of maybe an alliance of convenience because there's some external larger threat going on, in which case, in micronations, there really isn't, unless you're one of those that believes that war is justified and a Nerf gun and an airsoft gun is the same as having to hide in a trench because trying to advance 1 meter will get thousands of you killed.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I think, again, for the future and for what it is that Primario wants to do, I hope we can be as much of an assistance and an engine for that as possible. I think in doing that, in, like you're saying, reaching out to these other nations and trying to establish connections there, I think you are going to leave an imprint on Texas and Texan micronationalism. And I'm really excited to see that. I'm really excited to see you lead the charge in that way.
Yeah, as are we. We're excited to see where Primario goes for the next 5 years now that we've made it this far, and we're also excited to see where the community as a whole goes, where nations like Aeternia go, where nations like Dracul go, or the scary thought of imagining what's going to be of Molossia in the next couple decades.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess to go back to the corporate language for a second, what where is it that you see Primario in 5 years? What uh, going through all of the journey that you have up to this point? What do you see now as most crucial for you and your people?
Most crucial is being able to secure a permanent residence because right now, as I mentioned, or as I alluded to previously, we are living in an apartment. Well, more specifically, I am living in an apartment and my citizens are in different areas and different localities, but um, they're also living in apartments. So having a permanent base of operations, so to speak, is absolutely important, whether this be a house or a dedicated parcel of land like Vitae, or or even like a townhome that we have to pay dreaded HOAs for, but it's still ours. That would work too. That's one of the most important goals is having a permanent base of operations for our nation. And then this is less so 5 years from now, but more so immediate. Having a website is very important to us because Twitter is great and all. Twitter, I can curate Twitter. I can say I don't want to see this anymore, or I can add this. I can put this aspect of Micronations in my feed, or I can take this aspect of Micronations out of my feed. But having a website is so important for a nation because not only does it communicate professionalism and a place for your citizens to be able to use as a point of reference, it also works as a place for making the processes that your nation needs to do to operate. For example, citizenships. For example, legislative decisions. You could I believe that it's entirely possible to pass a bill, so to speak, into law using a dedicated micronation website, but that's less 5 years, more so like within the next year. And then another goal, let's see. I have more. I'm just kind of blanking right now.
Putting you on the
Um,
spot.
Sorry.
Sorry? I was just teasing. I said I'm putting you on the spot. I'm just saying, absolutely. Sit there thinking for a while, trying to figure it out.
Somebody just mentioned Arkansas, Wyoming, and Nebraska has the cheapest land, and I have looked at that, but I realized that the other thing about Texas is, as I mentioned before, it's huge. And because of that, I can find really cheap land if I go very far out west. Like it's insane how much the price of land drops the further west you go in Texas. Here where I live, land is pretty much you might as well buy a house at that point, a fully functioning, fully furnished house at that point because it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to even get like a fifth of an acre in this area. But when you go west, you go to the just past the Lubbock Amarillo area and between El Paso and that, there's so much land, but it's all desert land. So that's why it's so cheap. But it drops down to roughly like $1,000 an acre, maybe.
Absolutely. And that's incredible. I know Slow Jamistan, that group out in California, they've done something similar where they have a big plot of land out in the desert.
And
I
they're based in California, right?
correct, correct.
That's very fortunate for them to have land in California of all places.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of that is like you said, the fact that it's cheaper because it is more arid land, less ability to get resources out there. But I think that's also something that's incredible about micronationalism is the fact that you know trying to utilize things that other people have looked over or that other people said, well, you can't innovate here, you can't do these things, and I feel like a lot of people are pioneering in that aspect, and I can really admire that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been told that like, oh well, if you buy land in the desert, what? Well, then there's no worth in that land because like there's no water there, there's no resources there, there's nothing going on there. And then I look at projects that are dedicated to desert greening, for example, and I'm so heavily inspired by stuff like that because, excuse me, I just burp there, and that's very undignified of me. But I will say it would have been worse if I drank any soda because oh my goodness, I am a burpy mess when I drink soda. soda.
Soda.
I
Um,
love it. That's awesome.
but yeah, it's so inspiring when I see people. I believe in the country of Jordan, or I don't remember if this is Jordan or if this is another country in the Middle East, where they planted these trees that are very drought tolerant, and they're very tolerant. They only need rain maybe like once every 6 months or something like that, and they planted such a huge area that it actually altered the local ecosystem and brought rain to the area around where those little grove of trees is. It's actually impressive because I look at that and I think
I look at that.
you can really actually influence the you can actually influence the land by sort of working with it and sort of replenishing it in a way. Just put in a little bit of work and the land will do the rest for you. Though it will change, and it will maybe not do things for you because
For you because
sometimes the
sometimes
whole issue
the
of man
whole issue
versus
of man
nature,
versus
but
nature, but
just work on it a
just
little
work on
bit,
it a
and I
little
find
bit, and
that
I
land
find
is
that
just
land is just
it finds a way. Life finds a way. So to quote a mathematician slash theorist.
Absolutely. And I would say I completely agree with that. I've looked into not that Alabama has a ton of arid land, but just for my own interest in learning about farming and irrigation and stuff like that. There are a number of projects going on in Africa where people are looking at how, excuse me, how to use the terrain and the way that rain falls when it does very scarcely fall, to kind of navigate the way that they plant their crops, such that it most efficiently gets to all of them. And they've done these like really crazy spiral patterns where they'll have like specific different types of crops that have different like drainage levels and you know have different needs and stuff that are very well like protected and boosted by the ones next to them. It's
Mhm.
really cool to see the way that they implement that with like connection to people's houses and the way that the housing is set up and the way that they have like livestock and different animals that are like eating from some of their crops but are also like fertilizing them and helping to like keep everything as self-sufficient as possible in a place where people could not have thought farming was possible for a long
Yeah, and science also helps. Science also helps because then you can also have crops that love sand or love salt and they don't need a lot of water. And I find it impressive when you come out with say wheat or barley or crops like that that need maybe an inch of rainfall every so often, or they can be grown pretty much right along the coastline so that if there's a storm surge that hits them, they're perfectly fine. And it's especially important when you have climate change taking place where deserts are becoming drier and bigger and coastlines are becoming more and more flooded.
time. I completely agree. Um, hmm. I guess in that respect uh, there's a lot of benefit to micronationalism, but it's also a little bit scary the fact that a lot of those things are things that none of us can really independently avoid. They're going to affect us all, but they are things that together we can make change in and that we can speak out against. Um, that being the case, is there anything I wanna start to wrap up the stream a little bit, not to take up too much of your time during your
Oh,
anniversary.
of course, of
of course, of
course.
course.
But I was wondering, is there any big sort of parting message that you'd like to leave with the micronational community that you'd like to leave to anybody who might just stumble upon this stream?
Oh,
Oh,
goodness.
good.
I'm a way better writer than I am an orator. So, um, parting words. I would say that I don't want to say make love, not war. Oh my goodness.
Perfect.
um,
Well,
I would say that don't this is going to be a bit corny coming from me because I've spoken so much about other issues, but don't give up. If you truly believe in something and you see potential in not just in a barren piece of desert land, not just in your career that you've just started, and not just in your nation which you just started in. Don't give up on it. Just keep working on it. Keep doing. Keep adding to it. And honestly, it's kind of like writing in this regard, where oh, I don't know what to do. I don't. How do I make this look? How do I make this perfect? Just write. There's a reason why we have rough drafts and edits, because if you don't do anything, then you can't perfect anything. You can't what's the word? Refine anything, to use a metallurgy term right there. You can't, not purify, but yeah, like refine. You can't shape, you can't carve. Like if you don't get a piece of wood, you'll never be able to carve it into something interesting. If you don't get, for example, a piece of clay, you'll never make a piece of pottery. You have to start with something, even if it's shapeless and seemingly lacks potential. You have to start with something, and you have to stick with that something, because it's not just going to give you results right away. So, in that respect, that is what I have to offer, is just to don't give up, use what you have, and keep at it.
absolutely. And I think no truer words have ever been said to that degree. I again appreciate you so much for taking the time, Emperor Luna. Again, everybody, please check them out on Twitter. Coming out with a website. When that is up, we will be posting it here. I am sure that we will be having Emperor Luna back. Uh, Primario being the people who turn lumps of dirt into beautiful works of art and are changing the face of Texas and micronationalism together. So, again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate our time both here on the stream and any time that I get to talk to you off of it. Um, Please keep me updated. I want to learn more about Primario. I hope you all will follow along and keep updated with them like I am. And until next time,
Of
again,
course.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you, Emperor Luna.
All right. See you around. Take care.